This is Lewis Art for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store Forged Irish Stout. Delighted today to be joined with Adam Smith here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It is the day after yesterday. We've just seen we just see the 5 versus 5. I don't think anyone expected it to go how it was. A whitewash for Frank Warren, 10-0. I think it's going to be a sort of something that's going to be talked about for quite a while now. But I suppose, Adam, how are things and how did you enjoy last night?
I loved it. It was a fantastic concept. It was a brilliant idea, something different, entertainment to its fullest. I've loved the showcase and the creativity of everything out here, and of course the deep rivalry of Frank and Eddie played into it brilliantly. Two great teams, and surprising result, incredible one for Frank Warren and Queensberry. So many of the fights, which is what we loved beforehand, were pick-em, were 50-50, and you and I and everybody else around the media circus was not quite convinced how any of them would go. I mean, I thought Craig Richards would probably win. I thought the ball forward was exactly how I felt it would go. I thought Ford beforehand would win that. I thought Hamzah would win. I had Hrgovic probably beating Dubois just because of the size difference and the fact that he's technically, I thought, was better, but he was totally done over by a fired up and brilliant Daniel Dubois. But they were all close, so you didn't know. You could make a case for any of them beforehand. And then in the main one, a sad story, as we'll get onto. A really good win for Zhilei Zhang, but for me it was really upsetting to see Deontay Wilder struggle like that, and his star faded, and I can't see where he goes from here. Well, I know what I'd advise him. Can't tell anyone to retire, but Deontay's had an amazing career. But we'll talk about that later. But I think the fights themselves were great. The whole narrative and thought process behind it, from Turki Al Sheikh and everyone that was involved, pairing Frank and Eddie and the team format, and the fact that there was points and they could help each other and knock out bonuses, and it just had a bit of everything, didn't it, last night? And it had young prospects coming through different styles, winning in different strange ways. A cracker between Ford and Ball, and Dubois' performance, and Hamzah Sheeraz. There was just something from each fight. There were stories everywhere, but the core was obviously Queensberry against Matchroom and a 10-0 drubbing. And I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? You just couldn't have thought, or wouldn't have thought, that would happen beforehand. And Eddie had just made such a pitch. It took me back a little bit to one of the first promotions he was ever involved in, which was Audley Harrison and David Hay. And he told me how on the Friday night beforehand he got up on a table, and Audley was there, and the speeches were just unbelievable, and Audley was giving it this and how he was going to become a world champion and knock Hay out, and Eddie was up there, and he said I just thought I would have everything on Audley winning that. He just was convinced, and obviously it didn't work out anything like that. And in a way, he gave he played such a huge part to the promotion. It was an absolutely brilliant press conference from Eddie Hearn, whereas Frank was much quieter and calmer. Eddie was talking like a Churchillian, really, sort of absolutely getting that team spirit together. There's no better promoter to G his side up. But at the end of the day, the fighters didn't deliver for them. I mean, they tried. They all tried, and there were some real close and tight fights, and there was situations where it could have been different, but once they got a couple of wins on the board, Queensberry, they got that momentum, and Hamzah Sheeraz for me was their best choice as captain. So they just got into that almost unassailable lead. They could have had a draw if the two knockouts had gone the other way, with Hrgovic and with with Wilder. But alas for Eddie, it was 10-0, and I've seen the stuff on the plane with the high fives and all that, and I'm sure it will go on for many, many weeks to come. So be interesting to see what Barry Hearn thought of it all.
Absolutely, and I suppose just before we get into like the 5 fights, one guy I did want to get onto yesterday with a stoppage victory, Dmitry Bivol, a really good performance from him. His first stoppage victory in, I think, in about 5 years or something like that, in a long time actually. And obviously he's not all locked in for October 12th against Artur Beterbiev, but a good performance from Dmitry Bivol there.
I love Dmitry Bivol. I actually was standing up in the TalkSport studio with Jaya Pataya, and he's a huge fan of Dmitry. Yeah, I followed him for a long time. He's been with Matchroom for ages, and I remember him back in Monaco. That power has always been there with Dmitry Bivol, but of course as he's gone up in the levels and he's fought the top fighters, obviously Canelo and others, the power has been questioned, and there was many distance wins, but I think it is there for Dmitry. But what he does brilliantly is his technique is flawless virtually. His feet are unbelievable. His hands just are so quick, and he's got an amazingly tight defense. He's just brilliant. He's an elite boxer. I just love the way he just judges distance, and that foot movement is just phenomenal. And he was brilliant last night. Against a very game guy who was undefeated, but boxing's about levels. It's about levels and timing, and Dmitry Bivol's time is here and his levels are top, and I'm really looking forward to the fight with Beterbiev, and I've always slightly leaned towards Dmitry for that fight, so it was a perfect warm-up. And it's difficult when you've got another opponent in front of you at short notice, someone totally different. Okay, of course he was expected to win, but probably most people thought he'd win on points or later on, but I thought it was a fantastic display, and it just shows how good he is, and he's another of the pound for pound greats, and it's just fantastic for boxing that we can watch these amazing fighters up close, and I loved it.
Yeah. Well, the night started off with a massive upset, I think. Probably a lot of people would have said, and a lot of people in the media room, this is no disrespect, they would have said Richards beating Hutchinson was almost like a dead cert, and if there was any one out of the 5 that they could pick as a dead cert, would have been Craig Richards beating Willy Hutchinson. I think that was, people were sort of regretting that after about 6 rounds. Hutchinson putting in a brilliant performance sort of early on, was sort of fading towards the end, but a great display from Willy, and something that he really needed.
Absolutely, and that upset gave the drive really to Queensberry. Craig was slow out of the blocks. He looked static. He looked like he was a bit stuck in the mud. He just couldn't really get going. His timing was off in those first 2 or 3 rounds, and that was due mainly to the movement of Willy Hutchinson. He boxed like he was an amateur. It was fantastic. The way he switched orthodox to southpaw, the game plan was fabulous. Because Craig Richards, we pretty much all thought his experience would be too much, and Willy had been really bang up for this and real part of the team, and he loved, I think, the concept of being with the comrades in battle, and the fact he was first up and getting the upset win was a big drive for Queensberry and a massive moment for him. Greatest performance of his career so far, and really looking forward to seeing him in big fights going forwards. And just Craig got going eventually, and there was a couple of rounds he really put the pressure on, but we were saying in the media rows that Willy just had to hang on then, and I think he won the first 5 rounds for me, maybe even 6, but he was so good, and hats off to him and his team for a great performance. And disappointing for Craig because he'd only lost at pretty much the elite level or the very high level, and I think he really felt rejuvenated under Shane McGuigan. But bad night for Craig Richards, and he'll go back to the drawing board and come again, no doubt. But Willy Hutchinson with a wonderful performance, and delighted for him.
Nick Ball, Ray Ford, what a fight that was. I think everyone's stock went up there and it could have gone either way. But, really delighted to see, obviously, another UK world champion in Nick Ball. I suppose getting what he deserves after probably getting a tough share on the cards against Ray Vargas.
I was scoring it for Boxing News alongside Ben and Rob, and we all had it extremely close in slightly different ways. It was a great fight, probably, I think Dubois' performance or Sheeraz's performance, the highlights, but as a fight, it was the best fight of the night. And we always thought it would happen, the two styles. I fancied Ford slightly beforehand. I just thought he'd be a bit classier, and at times he was. And I think he's probably the higher level IQ, certainly in the ring, the way he moves. But Nick Ball, not only has he got unreal energy, And I saw him afterwards. We did some stuff on TalkSport together, and he was just fresh as a daisy. I'm thinking he could have gone and done another 12. It's bizarre. He's just a one-off, I think. And he reminds me a little bit of a Paul Ingle and other pressure fighters like that in the past. But he didn't stop. And even when he was being slightly outboxed at times, he just kept going, his spirit. And he's got quality with that. He's not just a come-forward guy, an old sort of Charlie Shepherd who'd sort of pile in and, he'd win by his sort of physicality and pressure. He's classy, lovely uppercuts going in there, beautiful work on the inside. But I also like Ford's work. It was really tight, and I could see Eddie being a bit disappointed afterwards, and Brian Peters was really excited and happy after the fight. I think he felt he won. I had it to Nick by a round, but it was really close, and the scores were right. The judges, got that and saw that. And we all got a fantastic fight, but it did also mean 2 up for Queensberry, so their matchroom were in trouble. But yeah, well done to Nick Ball, thoroughly deserved, world champion, delighted for him, great scouser and great character, and he just wanted it so much. And Ford will come back. We'd all love to see a rematch, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. Now, one person we do have to talk about, we spoke a little bit off camera about him, Hamzah Sheeraz, another brilliant victory. It seems like these past 6 or 7 months for him has been just a real turn of a corner. Obviously getting the stoppage victory in Ukraine, stopping Liam Williams, and then now having a stoppage victory over Ammo Williams, where he did sort of suffer a little bit of adversity in the second round, got buzzed with a really good left hand, but came through and almost made him even better. I'm
massively hot on Hamzah Sheeraz. I think he's one of the best young fighters in the world today. I have watched him for a long time. I spoke to him on Friday at length, and just he's a great guy out of the ring too. He handles himself so professionally. He's got a real strong team around him. He's taken himself away to America. He really wants this, but he's got fabulous technique. He's so big, isn't he, for a middleweight, and he's got a lovely long jab. Just utilises the ring wonderfully. He controls it very well. He's just not just a neat and tidy fighter, but he's got power, he's got some rhythm, he's some finesse. And I'm glad you mentioned the second round, because Ammo Williams gave him all sorts to think about, especially early on, until he just got a bit more deflated, the damage, and just chipped away at him, didn't he, Sheeraz? But in that second round, what I loved to see was that Sheeraz didn't panic. He was on his toes. He sort of glided around the ring. He got out of trouble. He got himself, he gathered himself again. He got himself sort of back to what Hamzah Sheeraz does so well, which is that fantastic technique. I always go on about the jab, and if you've got a potent jab, especially I think at heavyweight, but even down the weights, you've got a strong jab, it's always going to serve you really, really well. And if you utilize the ring like that, and you've got a height and reach advantage. Ammo Williams undefeated, dangerous, but after that second round, it was all Sheeraz. I thought he was brilliant. I think it's a fantastic win for him. I'd love to see him fight Chris Eubank Jr. I think that's a brilliant match to make on what looks like the Battle of Britain with AJ and Dubois in September. Love to see that fight. I think Hamzah Sheeraz is going to become a world champion. I've said it for a long time. He was our young fighter of the year at the Boxing Writers Club a few years back. Always been a big admirer of Hamzah, both in and out of the ring, and I think it was a wonderful win for him. I know Frank and him are very close. He made him captain for a reason. That was very, very smart by the Warren team. Frank and George got that bang on, and I think Hamzah Sheeraz is going to be a star of the future. I really do.
Time to talk about, I suppose, the man that calls himself the daddy of the heavyweight division, Daniel Dubois, with another stoppage victory. And we talked about guys turning it around after sort of the Usyk fight, where I think it's fair to say a lot of people were questioning his heart, his position in the sport. He came out against Jarrell Miller, and then he's just beaten an Olympic bronze medalist in Filip Hrgovic, who was one shot away from a world title. Everyone was waiting, when's Hrgovic going to get his world title shot? Dubois came in there and he spoiled all that plans and took his world title shot.
Isn't a comeback story or a proving story great? It's fantastic. Daniel was written off by many after the Joe Joyce, that sort of odd stoppage, and then of course you say about Usyk, but I thought he did really well against Alexander Usyk, and I think he seems rejuvenated under Don Charles. Sometimes there's just a relationship that a fighter needs, and it looks like he's found it. Also looks like AJ's found it with Ben Davison, sitting at ringside watching who he's going to tackle next. And for me, let's think about Filip Hrgovic for a minute. Beforehand, most people thought he was the favourite and would probably get a stoppage win for Matchroom. And he just didn't utilise that jab at all. He came out with his hands down. It was an odd performance from Hrgovic. He was trying with the big right hand, and Dubois weathered the storm. And I think the fact that Hrgovic went for that early finish, and then he was puffing and blowing. I noticed at the end of the second round, when he went back to his corner, and got worse and worse. And then there was all the damage to the face, but. Wow, what a performance from Daniel Dubois. I mean, he was just relentless. He sucked it up and then he dished it back, and he wasn't stopping. He was always, you look back, he was always right in the middle of the ring when that bell went. He was on his toes, he was ready to go, he was starting to back it up. He wasn't taking too many risks, just in case Hrgovic still had that power. They executed the game plan brilliantly. I spent a lot of time with Don Charles in the weeks before this, up there in the Finchley gym, and they were absolutely convinced that they were going to do exactly that they were going to have to take some punishment from Hrgovic, but they would eventually get inside him, break him down, and take his heart away, and break his spirit. That was the plan, and it just went perfectly. I mean, Daniel Dubois is still a young man, 26, and he's a massive player in the heavyweight division now. Looks like he fights Joshua. What a cracker that will be at Wembley, as Turki Al-Sheikh brings them over and makes the big nights in America in August and at Wembley in September. And he's talking about this press conference at the end of June. Anthony Joshua, for me, against Daniel Dubois, especially with what happened in the final fight of the night, makes perfect sense. And then you put Hamzah, Sheeraz and Chris Eubank Jr. On the card too. I've heard possible rumours of Inoue and others. I mean, it's going to be some happening in September. Great to see AJ back at home in Britain. I'm sure that the fans will come out, especially after his two great wins, or really back to form wins against Valin and Ngannou, and now a real test if he's fighting Dubois. I've seen a lot of rounds of them sparring. Lewis, tell me. Yeah. I've been up at Team GB where there's been, and Rob McCracken has seen them spar a great deal, and I tell you what, those spars were really well worth watching. So if there's anything like that in the ring, we're in for a treat. But yeah, really great performance from Daniel. I'm so happy for him. He spoke afterwards when he was in the ring with Chris afterwards. He was like, I think he spoke more than he'd ever chatted before, Daniel. He's a man of few words, but it was really nice to see him smile and that confidence come back at him. I think psychologically, mentally, physically, Don and him have got this great partnership. I think Kieran Farrell as well has come in. There's a really good team around Daniel now, and I think he's great, and he's a baby. The others are in their 30s and moving towards the end of their careers. Daniel's got time. A bit like Hughie Fury. He had those sort of quite hard fights early on. Hughie's only not even 30, I think. So there's still a lot of life in the heavyweight division. Alongside the Usyks, the Furies, the AJs, and I think Daniel Dubois is coming hot and good at the right time, and I'm sure he impressed Turki Al-Sheikh.
Just quickly before we move on to Wilder, the idea of Anthony Joshua against Daniel Dubois as a domestic heavyweight world title fight hopefully a world title fight at Wembley Stadium, that must rank like in the top level of great domestic heavyweight title fights that we've had. You can think of sort of David Haye, Derek Chisora, Lennox Lewis, Frank Bruno, and now, as you say, with all the sort of the rumours of the sparring and everything like that, it all makes for such a massive fight now, especially considering the form that Dubois is on.
I was just going to say that before you did. Lewis Bruno back in Cardiff reminds me a little bit of that. Yes, it's going to be a great fight. Of course, AJ, from popularity and also his form, will start a favourite against Daniel Dubois. But it's a terrific one, and of course they're not far away from each other as well in their part of London. Don Charles was involved with Anthony Joshua as well, and there's a lot of stories and history in the Team GB stuff, and I think it's a fight that at some point had to be made. It's also, of course, Matchroom against Queensberry again, so it's worked out brilliantly. It would have been good if Hrgovic had come through, and that would have been a great fight with him and Joshua, but it was a poor performance from Filip last night. But forget that for a minute. Let's concentrate on who won. It was Daniel Dubois' night, and he hasn't had many of those. He had a good one against Jarrell Miller where he proved a lot about his heart and guts and courage, and I think Turkey liked that, but he's come back and he's translated it into a bigger win, a stoppage win, and I think he would have stopped him anyway had it not been for the facial damage. So he was sort of slightly taken away from him, but brilliant performance, just broke Hrgovic's sort of heart and soul, and he's a big guy and he's a tough guy, Hrgovic, so that's no mean feat. It's a great win for Dubois.
Well, let's move on to the final fight of the night, and I suppose a little bit of a sad one, I guess. Deontay Wilder getting stopped by Zhilei Zhang. I think when people stepped on the scales and they saw, Zhang coming in at 280 and Wilder coming at 213, there was concerns, and I think that showed in the ring. And it's a little bit of a sad one to watch, I'd personally say.
I thought it was really sad. I'd had such a great night. I thought it was a fantastic sort of set of fights. Of course, by that point, Queensberry had already won, so the little bit of drama had been taken out, but still a big fight. And of course, not just a team event. This every individual have got their careers on the line, as always in these huge occasions and on these big nights. And yeah, and it was a fight, a heavyweight fight that people couldn't pick, Zhang and Wilder, because of Zhang's defeat to Parker, Wilder's terrible defeat to Parker, really. And I think we should have probably known that what we saw with Deontay against Joseph Parker, he was at the end. I think the trilogy with Fury had obviously taken a great deal out of him, but yeah, and I'm starting to reflect on how much I've loved having Deontay Wilder in the sport. Just looking back at that last night, it was sad. I thought Deontay's legs had slightly gone. I thought his timing was just not there. I thought he was gun shy. I thought he just wouldn't throw that right hand, really. It just looked like a fighter at the end, and it was really sad to see. And Zhilei Zhang did exactly what he needed to do. He sort of marched him down and got the knockout win. And I'm delighted for Zhang. He's again another great character in the sport, the big man, and that's a whole audience in China, which is fantastic. And they'll have big plans for the big man. Love what he said in the press conference afterwards. It was really funny. And yeah, he's great. And he's always been a dangerous heavyweight, but I think the story was more about the sadness of Deontay Wilder, maybe slightly disillusioned maybe with it all. I don't know. It was they were rallying, weren't they? The bomb squad and the captain of Matchroom and all that. But yeah, in reality, time catches up with you, and fighters, they sort of know when it's not there anymore. And I'm not Deontay. It's not my decision. It's his decision. If he wants to call it a day, he'll know because he's been in the ring. I hope with Malik Scott, who's a great boxing man, that they make the right decision for Deontay and his family. He's made a huge amount of money. He's been electric in this sport. He's been one of the great heavyweights of the last decade, and he'll be just known for that ferocious power that laid people out and was just dramatic. And for maybe his lack of high elite boxing skills, I mean, he's still got a bronze in the Olympics. He made up for it with that just concussive, fearsome power. I remember when he knocked out Luis Ortiz in their second fight. It silenced the MGM Grand. I mean, it was like a pin drop. It was weird, and that. I remember them saying it, coming from the sort of the wrist and the bones in his wrist and the density, and because he's got skinny legs, Deontay. But yeah, I mean, biggest probably single puncher since the Ernie Shavers days. Fabulous character in the sport. All the ring walks and the fun we've had with Deontay. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously his decision. But I'd like to see him call it a day now. I think it's the right time. I think we saw all we didn't want to see last night, and it was just a bit of a sad ending. But again, like Dubois and Hrgovic, take nothing away from the winner. Zhilei Zhang capped an amazing night for Queensberry. Frank Warren's demolition of Eddie Hearn will be ringing in the corridors of Matchroom for some time. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see Eddie and Barry, or be a fly on the wall for Eddie and Barry's sort of conversation after it all. But hey, look, it's fun and games. They're working together. They're under the same umbrella too. They were side by side last night, so we're going to have more of these sort of competitions, and no reason why other promoters can't get involved as well. So look, it was a fantastic trip over. I came with Izzy Asif. We had a great time and looking at what great shows they put on here, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. I worked with TalkSport and Boxing News, and nice being back around it. Missed picking up the mic, Lewis. I've got to be honest, it was a bit weird, but yeah, look, I love this sport. I'm passionate about it, and it was great to be here on such an amazing occasion. And for me, with a rivalry that goes back all of my boxing career, just sort of surreal, bizarre, astonishing to see what has happened and to see them collide like they did. Frank and Eddie, it was a brilliant idea, and I'm sure there'll be many more. And I love the fact that Turkey is already announcing the Bivol Batebiev fight. Looking forward to a huge night in September at Wembley. We've got the rematch announced just a few days ago with Usyk and Fury. TalkSport look like They've thawed things out. So look, it's really good for British boxing, for world boxing, what's happening, and it'd be great that the attention will now roll to Britain, and we've got a massive night that he'll be announcing in June for September, which is something that for fight fans can get really excited about. For those who haven't got the money, who couldn't travel to Saudi for whatever reason, they've got the chance to go to one in Britain, and I think that's very clever from the Saudi and the seller groups here, that they're thinking about fans around the world, in America and in Britain, and I think there'll be an amazing night there at Wembley.
Absolutely. Adam, I just want to say thank you for taking time to speak. It's been great to see you this week, mate. It's been great to chat to you as always, and I always do appreciate your time. So thank you for taking time to speak to me. And safe journey home, mate, because I'm sure we'll be catching up with you in England sometime soon, mate. Top man, thank you.